Hello and welcome to another episode of This Song Sucks, a podcast where three pals get together and talk about the music that we hate. I'm joined today by Hayden, almost 35 and somehow still alive, Crawford. Happy birthday, buddy.
Ring-a-ding-a-ding-a-dingy-dingy-dong.
What a birthday gift this episode is for him.
Oh, yeah. And you just heard Adam, oops, all reverb pedals Morrow.
Which might explain what I hate about this song already.
Severe lack of it.
Yeah. It's also so tight and clean.
I'm smiling so hard, you guys.
Yeah, today we are doing Around the World by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And before we get started today, I just wanted to kind of talk about a few things. I mean, first, the source for most of today's info comes from Anthony Kiedis' autobiography, Scar Tissue, which came out in 2004. Now, I couldn't get an actual copy of it to read because apparently the public library limits the amount of ebooks that can be, quote-unquote, checked out.
It's in high demand these days.
Yeah, obviously. But most of the websites I looked at, like Wikipedia and other articles and stuff, cite this book frequently, as well as By the Way, which is a biography of the band written by somebody else that came out the same year. But I would take a lot of info that comes from Kiedis' book, particularly with skepticism, and there's two reasons for that. One, a lot of the articles I found had conflicting information, but they both cited this book. And then number two is Anthony Kiedis is a giant D-bag, so I wouldn't believe anything he says.
You don't say.
You don't believe the ghostwriter who listened to him talk and then constructed the tale for him?
Yeah, I mean, well, I use the Miles Davis autobiography as like the gold standard of like 50-50. This is made up, and maybe
now,
like
who's
50%.
Miles Davis again?
But yeah, they're going to say the things that make them look good. And actually, he says a lot of stuff that makes him look bad. But one other thing we want to talk about here is, since we are celebrating Hayden's birthday, we decided to give him a little bit of a gift. So what we're going to do, one of his favorite pastimes is just reading random Anthony Kiedis lyrics out of context.
As they do when they do in Sicily.
there you go. And so to add to this fun, we're going to have Adam also went and mined some great Anthony Kiedis lyrics. And just throughout the show, we're going to interject, and they'll each offer one up, and I'll decide who has the more deplorable of the lyric, and we'll see who tallies up and wins this little contest we're having.
I feel like I'm playing with fire here. Like I'm stepping into the arena with somebody who built the arena. This is not wise for me.
It is a definite David versus Goliath situation going here.
I'm like the birthday sacrificial lamb, for sure.
A Kiedis lyric battle? Yes, I could. Yes, I could in the woods of Wisconsin, you guys.
All right, so let's for that, let's go ahead. Hayden, why don't you hit us with your first lyric?
We're off the top, huh?
Mm-hmm, right off the top.
I'm going to go straight in with an absolute banger from Purple Stain. Maybe my favorite track on Californication. To finger paint is not a sin. I put my middle finger in. Your monthly blood is what I win. I'm in your house, now let me spin.
Jesus Christ. Okay, Adam, what do you have in response to that?
Because he mentioned Wisconsin there in the introduction, I'll keep it in the middle west of America. This is from Especially in Michigan. Life is my friend. Underwater violins. Order now from Ho Chi Minh. A porcelain that comes in twins when I'm in Michigan. The cleavage of your pillow skin is moving like a violin. And that's it. That's how it ends. Also, he uses the word mitten a lot in that song. And since we are...
He's talking about Michigan, right?
In the shadow of Bernie Sanders in his mittens, it really called to me.
Well, those are both pretty bad, but I can't get over the menstrual blood, so I think Hayden's going to edge out on this one. So
1-0.
My first L of the day.
1-0 advantage Hayden.
Deep to right field. Wink.
This is already off to a really bad start.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off here with a little bit of chronology of the band. I kind of want to create a narrative leading up to Californication, which is the album that Around the World is from. So the band formed in Los Angeles, California, shocker, in the early 80s. Original lineup was Kiedis, Flea, whose real name is Michael Balzari. Their guitarist was Hillel Slovak, and then Jack Irons was the drummer. And they were all classmates at Fairfax High School. The first interesting tidbit I found is for their very first show, their band name was Tony Flo and the Miraculously Majestic Master of Mayhem.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's some serious Mother's Milk vibes right there.
Yeah, and apparently the music in their first show just consisted of the band improvising funk grooves with Kiedis rapping over them, which I have to imagine was just horrible to watch.
So they never really deviated from the formula, is what you're saying?
No, I mean, I'm thinking what happened is they didn't have any songs written. It's just like, let's just play some funk jams, and then Kiedis will, serenade us with his sweet word poetry.
Sexually harass everyone around them.
Probably so. But anyway, they changed their name to Red Hot Chili Peppers at their second gig, and it stuck, obviously. So in November of 83, they had a manager, and they're able to strike a 7-album deal with EMI and Enigma Records, which this is based off of a 6-song demo they recorded at their live shows, which I guess record contracts are just falling out of the sky in that time period.
It's a good time to be a young band in Los Angeles, singing about drug use in Los Angeles.
So at the time, the guitarist and drummer were actually under contract with another band, so they couldn't record the album. So they picked up a different drummer and a different guitarist. So their first, I think, 2 albums actually have this other guitarist and drummer. So their first album came out in August of 84, self-titled, The Red Hot Chili Peppers. They kind of started to gain a following on college radio stations. The album would actually reach 201 on the Billboard chart for 8 weeks, so it's like just so close to breaking in, but not quite there. The album sold, I think, 300,000 copies, so, not quite gold. Apparently, during the touring for this album, a lot of friction between Kiedis and the new guitarist led the band to fire that guitarist, and Slovak, the original guy, came back. And you're going to see a lot of points of friction between Kiedis and fill in the blank as we go through this
Slovak
story.
had one too many heroin cocktails, right? That's how they went.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that here pretty shortly.
Just refreshing myself.
Yeah. So they released their second album titled Freaky Styley in 85, and this is something I didn't know. Yeah, Freaky Styley, exactly.
What's so funny, Adam?
Nothing.
But the album was produced by George Clinton of the Parliament Funkadelic, which I had no idea.
I did know that, actually.
And it included Maceo Parker on saxophone and Fred Wesley on trombone. And both those guys played with James Brown and P-Funk. So these are like hot shit horn players. And also Wesley was the arranger for James Brown as well. So it's like they've got a lot of firepower on this record. However, it wasn't commercially successful. They almost got gold, 450,000. They never cracked the Billboard 200. Rolling Stone, a guy reviewing the album, wrote, like the group's debut album, Freaky Styley had, quote, not a single memorable song, while the band's, quote, funky monkey shtick camouflaged serious musical deficiencies.
Funky monkey. That's funny you should say funky monkey, because that's quite a theme on the message boards.
Is it funky monkey?
But we'll get there later. Yeah.
So an interesting little tidbit about the production is like apparently George Clinton like wanted to hang out with the guys and get to know them for like a month before they recorded to kind of build a rapport. And I think in fact the band lived with Clinton for like a couple of weeks. And this leads to, I mean, shocker, the band was really heavy into heroin and cocaine during the recording of this album.
No.
And yeah, get out, right?
Not these guys.
But in Kiedis' autobiography, he says that the song You're the Turtle has spoken lyrics on it that were recorded by George Clinton's drug dealer because Clinton was unable to pay the debts he owed to the dealer, so he just offered him a part on the album.
Amazing.
I'm imagining this drug dealer like finding out that like later that it wasn't like a P-Funk record. He like listens to Freaky Styley and he's like, what the fuck is this? You still owe me, man.
It's funny that they wound up living with him. I found a weird testimonial, like a weird blog from a Dallas entertainment booker from the early 90s who was talking about booking them around that era, or I guess a little after that era, but how they rolled up in a dinky van with like out any shirts on and like hadn't eaten in 2 days and immediately asked him to feed them, please. So he drove them to his mother's house and fed them Kraft macaroni and cheese. and they smoked a joint, went back to the venue. So this seems to be a theme with these boys in the early days. Really road dogging it, you know?
Yeah, you're going to see how they spend their money here in a minute, but, you know, they don't have a whole lot. I mean, they're popular enough to get George Clinton to produce for them, but they're not, like, making buku bucks at this point, obviously. So I wrote a little catalog of issues for the band related to drugs during the mid to late 80s. So in 86, so this was after Freaky Styley, the record label gave the band $5,000 to record a demo for their next album. And Slovak, the guitarist and the producer for the album, just immediately set aside $2,000 of this specifically for buying heroin and cocaine.
Only 2,000? What a weenie.
Yeah, so like 40% of the, all right, we're making a demo. Obviously, 40% of it needs to go to drugs. But the next thing is they tried to hire Rick Rubin for this record, their third record, to produce it, but he refused because of the band's drug problems. He just said, no way. Recording of the third album was halted due to Kiedis' heavy drug use, and at one point the band actually briefly fired him over it.
Was there a particular incident?
I didn't find a particular incident, but like it's behavior similar to a heroin addict. You know, he's probably just missing for days. You know, they can't find him.
You mean he's just romping into stomping because he's in his prime? You fucking nerd. God.
Excuse me. You're probably right. So both Kiedis and Slovak had developed serious drug addictions by the release of their third album, The Uplift Mofo Party Plan, in 1987. And yeah, so both of them would often disappear for days during this period while they were recording the record. But the record was actually the first to make the Billboard 200 at 148, and that record would eventually sell to gold status. So despite the drug problems, they're getting a little more success with this third album. And of course, you know, I don't want to joke about it because it is, you know, addiction is a serious thing. But Slovak, the guitarist, did die of a heroin overdose.
Sick.
In 1988. And the drummer, Irons, the original one who was back at this point, he left the band right after because he was just so distraught by the death of their friend. So that's kind of a downer. So Hayden, why don't you pop us another Kiedis lyric to brighten the mood a little bit?
I thought you'd never ask. I'm going to go with a little brighter one since we were in the dark place there. I'm going to go with Road Trippin', a nice little ditty from the end of Californication. Road trippin' with my two favorite allies. Fully loaded, we got snacks and supplies. It's time to leave this town. It's time to steal away. Let's go get lost anywhere in the USA.
Okay. Pretty dumb. Adam?
This one is a selection from the third verse of 21st Century. Simple soldier handed over, stop and read what you just wrote her. Strangulation, altercation, oral sex, and bird migration.
Bird migration.
Okay, for pure, just like not even being related to each other, I think Adam takes that one.
Oh, yeah.
Got the W. I'm on the board. Not going to be a shutout.
I tricked Adam into using the good one with my road tripping bait.
Ah.
That was my burn card.
Wait, what was the rhyme scheme from the bird migration leading to that again?
It was strangulation, altercation, oral sex, and bird migration.
He really couldn't come up with another word for Asian, and so he just threw in bird migration.
Funny how by the time he gets to Californication, he's talking about lonely birds with views. And, you know.
He really is a huge fan of the AABB pattern for rhyming, I've discovered, in coming through these lyrics.
He's steeped in a deep tradition of poetry, obviously.
Yeah.
So after Slovak's death, they kind of went back and forth with some different guitarists and drummers, but John Frusciante joined the band in September of '88, and then drummer Chad Smith, a.k.a. Will Ferrell, would join in December of that year as well.
Yeah, backwards hat Will Ferrell.
Yeah, exactly. The fourth album, Mother's Milk, was released in August of '89. So this one...
Wink!
Mm-hmm. It peaked at number 52 on the Billboard 200 and got to gold pretty quickly within 6 months in March of 1990. And this record would eventually reach platinum status, but of course that's probably several years later. The band left EMI in 1990, which started a major label bidding war. They were signed with Warner Brothers and hired Rick Rubin to produce their next album, which was Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, released in 1991. So obviously this is kind of like their big, huge breakthrough especially within the popular radio realm. So just to kind of go through what came out of that, Give It Away won a Grammy in '92 for Best Hard Rock Performance.
Hard rock.
Yeah, Under the Bridge would reach number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, which still that remains their highest position on that chart. And then Give It Away would also reach 73. So they had 2 Hot 100s and a Grammy. The album itself was number 3 on the Billboard album chart.
Did Suck My Kiss not chart?
No, I mean, I'm sure it charted on the, the rock stuff, but these were the only 2.
Your mouth was made to
Suck My Kiss. So the album eventually was certified 7 times platinum in the U.S., and then its overall sales were over 14 million.
Good grief.
I think later albums may have eclipsed that, but certainly I don't think y'all would disagree to say this is probably artistically their best album, but certainly also one of their most commercially successful.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this, but this is just sort of a little note that kind of shows you how huge they were. So this is 1991. And when they toured for this album, their opening acts included Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and the Smashing Pumpkins. So I guess this is right before those 3 bands like really blew up huge, but like...
I cannot imagine Kurt Cobain getting along with Anthony Kiedis.
Oh, God.
Billy Corgan, on the other hand, from D-bag to D-bag situation, they probably got along just fine.
Yeah, for sure. So apparently Frusciante, the guitarist, struggled with fame and left the band abruptly in 1992. I don't know if you've seen this, and I remember seeing this many years ago, but there was a Saturday Night Live performance that they did in 92 of Under the Bridge. And there's really nothing about the performance that's very good, but Frusciante's guitar playing is just absolute garbage. His guitar is out of tune, which apparently was a common complaint. And he also just, like, all the little kind of filigrees in that Under the Bridge guitar riff just aren't there. He's just kind of playing the chords, and he's also playing it way too slow. And so that's bad enough, but when they get to the end part... when, like, the choir ladies come in and start singing really high at the very end of the song, I don't know if he was supposed to do this, but he did, and he just starts yelling out of key, just really loudly. It's so bad. I mean, he's probably really strung out. I think at this time he was probably hooked on heroin as well. But it was no bueno situation, so he left.
I'm pretty sure he just sat in a room and did heroin for 2 years when he left the band.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute.
Sounds pretty sick.
Yeah, it wasn't great. But Dave Navarro joins the band in late '93, and his relationship with the band is basically just downhill from the very beginning. Navarro admitted in interviews that he did not care for funk music or jamming. So it's like, why are you in this band, dude? And Kiedis also...
I don't care for Jane or her addiction.
No, yeah. I didn't really look too much in why he left them, but, as we'll see...
Who cares?
I'm guessing it has something to do with him being a dick. But Kiedis said in his autobiography that the songwriting process for the new album was much slower with Navarro. So, quote, John had been a true anomaly when it came to songwriting. I just figured that was how all guitar players were. That you showed them your lyrics and sang a little bit, and the next thing you knew, you had a song. That didn't happen right away with Dave. So Dave is clearly not fitting in very well. I'll also say that the songwriting process might also have to do, again, with a lot of the struggles with Kiedis just being really heavy into drugs at the time.
Just mainlining heroin nonstop.
Yeah. So the album One Hot Minute is released in September '95. It took him 2 years.
My friends are so depressed.
Yeah. It took 2 years for them to write the songs for this album, which is...
astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bad record.
They could have taken 5 years. I don't think it would have gotten any better. And obviously the album was largely seen as a huge disappointing follow-up to Blood Sugar Sex Magic. David Brown of Entertainment Weekly criticizes the record for, quote, attempts at cosmic philosophy which often trip up on hippy-dippy sentiments. And some songs, quote, fall back on tired frat funk flop sweat.
Ooh.
Sounds like he needs to step aside as Johnson.
God.
Quit being such a weenie, man. Just get in the groove.
Also, AllMusic Stephen Erlewine considered the song My Friends is a blatant attempt to hold on to a mainstream audience gained by Under the Bridge. However, the album still reached number 4 on the Billboard 200 and would eventually be certified double platinum. But just to have some comparisons between this album and Blood Sugar Sex Magik, to kind of show the precipitous fall off, Blood Sugar sold 14.4 million copies worldwide. One Hot Minute sold 5.8 million, so less than half. But I think a more accurate indicator of the staying power of these albums is the Spotify streams. So I don't know when this is updated, probably relatively recently, and this ratio probably holds, but Blood Sugar Sex Magik has 847 million streams, while One Hot Minute only has 113 million. So, I mean, considering how huge Blood Sugar Sex Magik was, it really is just a huge drop-off. Very disappointing. Touring for the album did not go well. Drug use by both Kiedis and Navarro, and then injuries to the band members. I think Kiedis tried to do a backflip and hurt his back or something at one point during a show.
Oh, he's getting old.
But they had to cancel a whole bunch of shows in 1997.
Oh, speaking of backflips, let me interject you real quick. Part of that, a key part of that story from the Dallas club booker that I told earlier was that while he was cooking the Kraft macaroni and cheese for the guys, he looked out his back window and Anthony Kiedis was doing backflips on his mom's trampoline.
So it was a pattern of behavior leading up to the injury is what you're saying.
Yeah, and
seems like
guy likes to backflip.
Yeah.
So they had to cancel a bunch of shows in 97. The band fires Navarro in 98, citing creative differences, but Kiedis says in his autobiography that it was because of Navarro's drug use. I mean, pot, meat, kettle. The story is apparently that Navarro showed up to rehearsal so strung out that he fell over and knocked a bunch of guitars and amps over. But, my guess is that the real reason that they fired him is because both Kiedis and Navarro were probably just insufferable junkie dickheads at this time.
Sounds like a fair assessment.
Yeah. So, again, we're on another low note here. So, Hayden, pop off another lyric for us, would you?
This is from I Like Dirt. Some come up... Shh. Silence, please.
You cannot... You're already winning by named on based on the name. I like dirt.
I like dirt. Some come up and some come young. Live to love and give good tongue. Sit down, get down in the sun. Rocket to the woman is on the one. I like dirt. I like dirt. I like dirt. I like dirt.
Okay, Adam.
It's a wonderful reading, too. This is from Come On Girl. The spirit of a dragon's tear is lovely at this time of year. The cave within your mountainside is deeper than it will be wide. Hold me.
Oh, boy. That's a good
I couldn't
round.
even keep it together to finish that one.
Okay, I mean, despite Hayden's very dramatic reading of I Like Dirt, I think Adam takes that one.
2-1.
Man. Ouch. I thought I had that one.
All right, you're playing catch-up now, Hayden.
Touche, Morrow.
So, during this time, the band was basically on the verge of breaking up. Apparently, Flea told Kiedis that the only way to carry on would be get John Frusciante back in the band. And as Hayden kind of alluded to earlier, after he left the band in 92, Frusciante had essentially become a recluse. He fell into heavy depression and became severely addicted to heroin. Apparently, he hung out with River Phoenix a lot around the time that he died. So
not great.
Yeah, not a great situation to be in. He recorded a few, 1 or 2 solo albums that were just sort of weird avant-garde noise. And then this is one of the conflicting pieces of information I found where they were both citing the Scar Tissue book, but one source said that Flea got him to enter rehab, and then another source said that some other friend of his did. But apparently he successfully completed rehab in late 98. Flea asked him to rejoin the band.
Did you guys see that he recently released another record of weird avant-garde noise?
I did not know.
It's a jungle-themed electro-pop record written about his dead cat, I believe.
Okay.
Sure.
Why not? Yeah, why the fuck not?
I mean, Pitchfork wrote about it.
What did they have to say? Did you get any quotes from that?
What's the number
No.
rating?
I think it was like a 6 or something. I didn't really read the review. I listened to a couple tracks, or 20 seconds of a couple tracks. I was like, I don't think so, John.
No, sir. I will not be submitting myself to this.
The Shape of Water had a couple of good tracks on it, though.
Yeah, I mean the guy is a good musician, but it's just he's a little weird. But after being in production for a year, apparently Frusciante and Flea just kind of got together and jammed, and that's how the songs came about.
Yeah, man, jamming.
Yeah, jamming out.
Just jamming, bro.
So we're now at the album that we're going to be talking about. Californication was released in June 1999. This was certified 6 platinum, so not quite as many sales as Blood Sugar Sex Magic, but it debuted and peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200, which is a tie with Blood Sugar Sex Magic on that chart. But interestingly, it remained on the chart for 101 weeks. So this is kind of a little bit of a side.
Probably because it had like 95 singles from it.
Yeah. It had 3 big singles that appeared on the Billboard Hot 100. Scar Tissue reached number 9. It also won Grammy for Best Rock Song in 2000. Other Side was number 14 on the Hot 100, and then Californication got up to 69. As Hayden would say, wink.
Wink City, baby.
Wink City. So, like I said, the album was on the Billboard 200 for 101 weeks, and I was thinking, man, that seems like a long time. So I went and looked up like the records for this. This is, like I said, a bit of an aside. But if both of y'all had to take a guess at an album that has been on the Billboard 200 the longest with never dropping off, what would your guess be, Hayden?
Thriller.
No, it's not the top. Adam?
Dark Side of the Moon.
Absolutely. And it crushes everyone. I think it's, still going. 958 weeks.
Wow.
Which just blew me away.
Kids always want to try pot. That's the thing.
Yeah. The number 2 spot is Legend by Bob Marley and the Wailers. And then the number 3 spot is Journey's Greatest Hits.
Oh, God, I hate America.
But Hayden, number 4 is Metallica's self-titled album.
Yeah, that album sucks.
Yeah. But that just kind of blew my mind. I mean, I don't know what the position is, but just the fact that it sells enough for it to be on the chart for 30 years. It's ridiculous.
Jeez.
Anyway, back to Red Hot Chili Peppers. The album had...
Do we have to?
Hold on, you're about to get another lyric, buddy, so just be patient. But this album, it has worldwide sales of 16.3 million and 1.4 billion streams. So this probably is the most... It's hard to say if this is more commercially successful because it's 6 platinum instead of 7, but like with the Billboard 100, the fact that they have a Grammy, and then the current Spotify streams, I would argue that this is their probably most commercially successful album. Most critics also gushed over it, stating that Kiedis' vocals had improved significantly, but most critics also credited the, quote, rebirth of the band to Frusciante's input. However, others were critical of the lack of trademark funk in this album. So the good quote I found here was from a British website called NME. Can we have our brain-dead, half-dressed, funk-hop rock animals back now, please? All this false empathy is starting to make my removed rib tingle.
Good old NME.
Oh, man. I found a similar anecdote from an angry fan expressing a similar opinion. This is from Leah Chim04 on Rate Your Music. Too much drama and sentimental weeniness considering their old happy madness. Damn that rehab. 2 out of 5.
Damn that rehab.
It's a rock and roll tale as old as time right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Sentimental weeniness is a great term.
So before we get into the specific things that we hate about this song around the world, let's do another lyric battle here. Hayden?
All right, well, since I'm down, I'm going back to Purple Stain, number 2. All right. Up to my ass in alligators. Let's get it on with the alligator haters. Did what you did what you said. What's the point, yo? What's the spread?
Okay, Adam.
I'll stay on the animal theme. This is from Slow Cheetah. Slow cheetah, come before my forest. Looks like it's on today. Slow cheetah, come, it's so euphoric, no matter what they say.
God, I hate him so much.
It's just, these are just utter trash, man. Come on. But I think Alligator Hater is really the one that's going to win it out for me on that one. So we're at 2-2.
Yeah.
Okay, whew. I feel like if I lost another one, I feel like the fact that I had the AOL name Chili Peppers DMB was.
I forgot about that. What a great combo name.
Let's spend some time on this. Tell me more about this.
Well, you want to know what that followed? That was my more adult AOL Instant Messenger name because my original name was the Corn Boy 69.
Both classic.
But as I grew older and wiser, it was Chili Peppers DMB for quite some time, and I actually got that name too, Chili Peppers _DMB.
Well, you were there in the pioneer days,
Yeah,
so to speak. That's amazing. And all of your friends and strangers knew what you were all about as soon as you sent that sup message.
Also, as soon as they saw my first car, they knew what I was all about. I don't know if are you familiar with my first car, Adam, and the stickers that were on it?
No.
Oh man, I had like 15 band stickers on the back of my Honda Accord.
Hell yeah.
Including a Dancing Nancy.
Was this a 2 or a 4-door Accord?
4-door, baby. Luxury.
Yeah. Pile everybody in.
Yeah.
Go see Keller Williams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, I think I had, let me see if I can remember all the stickers. It was DMB, Fish, Widespread Panic. There was some sort of bunny rabbit flipping you off.
Was Calvin peeing on anything?
Yeah, something like that. But there was some other bad, like jam band. But then on the bumper, my darker side arose, and I had a Tool and a Smashing Pumpkins sticker.
Ooh. My specific memory of that car is just one, how terribly it smelled like cigarette smoke, and then two, and you being convinced that, like, I was like, does D not care about this? Like, you can't smell it.
D is my father for all the listeners who are unfamiliar. Big D.
But the second memory I have is you blazing down McFarland Boulevard, probably doing 85, 90 miles an hour, blasting the Magic Dance from the Jim Henson movie.
The David Bowie song?
David Bowie
song.
Yes.
You remind me of the Babe. What Babe? Babe with the power. What power?
All right, well, let's get back on track here. We're going to start talking about the things that we hate about around.
Again, do we have to?
I mean, it's kind of the point of the episode, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So Adam and I, we were kind of discussing, and I think he and I have similar issues with this song, so I'm going to let him kick us off here. Adam?
I feel that the last few that we've talked about, one of my points was it feels like they took a bunch of sections that were okay on their own and just Frankensteined them together. They're kind of like a zombie collection. So like this song starts and it's just intolerable from the get-go, right? Like all of the bass solo and the guitar and all that. It's not for me. That's fine. Keeps going. The verse kicks in. The verse is fine. The more, I'll say this about the verse. The more that I listened to it, first time re-listening, I hated the guitar. Hated it. Hated the tone. Hated the weird timing of it. Just hated everything about it. But the more I listened, the more, I don't know if it's like a Stockholm Syndrome kind of situation where, is this good? Is this clever? Is something happening here?
I think it is Stockholm Syndrome.
Okay.
It must be. There's no logical reason otherwise.
Right. But I mean, I hate to bitch about his guitar playing because he is a good guitar player. We talked about this before we started taping, but I think he gets placed on a pedestal that's maybe not, that house may be not as sturdy as people think it is. I don't think he's really like one of the all-time geniuses of pop guitar that people think he is, but hey, he usually adds quite a bit to these songs, and in this one, I don't know. It's just awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that he is not a good guitarist because I think he is. He's a great guitarist, but I agree with you that the raising up that people do of not only just his skill as a guitarist, but his songwriting, which is for the most part good, but it's like he's almost at the lip of greatness, and the critics and fans just give him that little boost to put him up there, is what I'm saying.
And he's such a funny, like, we talk about, say, somebody like the Dave Matthews Band, critically panned consistently, or at least getting meh reviews. And then you have a band who, what are the Chili Peppers really saying? You know what I mean? And like somehow this guitar player escapes from that world. And like I pulled up, Hayden, you mentioned his last record. I did pull up that Pitchfork review. He got a 7.6. So
Damn.
he has escaped his initial rise to fame and now gets to make weird records that, the gatekeepers of indie rock say are worth a pretty good review.
Is it in fact about his past cat?
I think so. The name of the record is Maya. I believe so. But all of that to say, I watched a few videos on like how to play this song. There's a ton of, he's probably one of the most like tutorialized guitar players on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
All his parts are so simple. That's probably why, right?
Yeah, and people, I think it's because he's in this space of like, this guy's a genius, but I can play this song,
Right.
And he's got a lot of hooks. And like, so one of the videos was by the online music retailer / eBay-esque auction site Reverb. They do a lot of things where they walk you through. So you want to sound like fill in the blank. Here's how to do it. And what they're trying to do is like send you to different pedals and that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
They're cool videos.
I've been waiting for this.
Did you watch this video?
No, but I'm so interested in what you're saying.
Well, so as they go through, then they do a really good job with it. There's the dude playing, and in this one, he doesn't even talk. He's got like hair down over his face. Sometimes they try to do some to camera talking. It's like, no, dude, that's the downfall of any guitar tutorial is the dude talking to the camera. So they ignore that, and they just lay the pedals out in the screen, like picture in picture next to him, and they show you how to sound like him, like settings and everything. And they run through all these songs, like Under the Bridge, all this stuff. You're like, oh, he wrote the hook. You know what I mean? Like he created the whole mood. And most of the time, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of overdubs in what he does. It's just like a clean A guitar part. And that's an impressive thing to do. Mm-hmm. Until they got to the Around the World track. And it's just like, it sounds so bad. He's using to get in the weeds of the dorkiness here, he's using an Ibanez wah pedal to like do all that different stuff, which now you can get one on Reverb for like $200. I bet that's just because of scarcity at this point. I have a feeling you could have bought one of those for very cheap from the used section of your newspaper in 1998.
Sweetwater.com.
Local music shop, probably.
Your local shop would have one rotting probably every other week for $40 or something at that point. And his distortion pedal of choice, there's some conflicting stuff on this, but the consensus is that it was some version of the Boss Orange Box.
I knew it.
Either the DS1, they say maybe a DS2, which is a slightly different model, but the DS1 is like the classic, my first distortion pedal.
Well, hey, it was good enough for Cobain, right?
There is something to be said for these guys who use that. Like I've even heard of pretty big bands that still are out there road dogging it, who only buy things and take them on tour that you can buy at Guitar Center.
Yeah.
Because they've either had like their shit stolen enough times that they don't want to risk it, or like if it breaks, you want to replace it. So like he's getting good sounds out of that kind of stuff. But if you really just want to start in a hole with me, it's a Stratocaster directly into a Marshall amp. And
Careful.
That's what he's doing. There was some interesting. Apparently, he only owned one guitar when they got him back in the band, and it was a '62 Jaguar. And his quote was, once he got back, he had to get a loan from Kiedis and went to Guitar Center and bought like a vintage Stratocaster that they had there because he wanted a quote unquote real guitar again, which, as a big fan of the Offset, I take issue with. There's nothing wrong with the '62 Jaguar.
Well, the interview I have where he talks about this, he recorded the riff for Around the World on the Jaguar.
Really?
Yeah.
Everything I found said Strat, but you probably have better sources here.
Take that, Adam.
We can get into, because a lot of my problem is with the guitar riff, and I found it was a interview in September '99 of Guitar Player magazine So it's like right after the release of the record, and everyone's flipping out about him being back in the band. But he talks about, they interview ask him a bunch of questions about his gear, but he says it was a Jaguar, and he liked it, quote, because it sounded cheap.
He nailed it.
Yeah. And so going along with what some other stuff he says in here, so the interview is asking about how the songwriting process was. So he says, I thought of the guitar part for Around the World at my house, and I said to everyone, you got to hear this, but I can't play it by myself, or you'll hear the one in the wrong place because it has a really deceptive downbeat. I had Chad keep time on the hi-hat while I played the lick. Everybody dug it, so I just kept playing it over and over until Flea came up with his bass part. First of all, the downbeat is absolutely not deceptive at all. His playing is just stiff and robotic. I mean, it's just, he plays an upbeat 16th note, and then on the downbeat of one, plays a bunch of 16th notes. And the thing about a good funk guitar riff or bass line is that the beat is made clear regardless of the complexity of the syncopations.
Exactly.
And there's really no syncopations in this riff. It's ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. It's just a 16th note thing, and it's not just the fact that it's just straight 16th notes, but again, the way he plays it is just super. He's kind of a little bit ahead of the subdivision on each one, so it feels rushed. And he says again in the interview, the way the bass line goes with my guitar part is amazing. When we played them without the drums, they don't make any sense, but with the drums, they really lock in. And I don't know, maybe Frusciante just has a really fucked up sense of timing, but it seems to me they probably should have just left him to cook in the rehab a little bit longer, maybe.
I will say, when I first heard this and I was thinking about how is this song constructed, and maybe, Josh, you have some additional information on this. Everything I could find, there are 4 songwriters, and it's the 4 guys in the band, which is a rarity that not just the guy who came up with the riff and Kiedis would take credit. Most rock bands are not quite so democratic in that way, or as democratic as they appear. So I thought that kudos to them for that, sharing ownership here. But I assumed on first listen, I was like, oh, this is him trying to keep up with Flea. Flea is doing his thing, and you have to find a way to also have guitar going on, and this was his answer. Interesting that it started with him.
Yes, I was just as shocked because I assumed the same thing. It sounds like he played this riff, and then, like a lot of Chili Peppers song, it's Flea's bass lines that really kind of hold it together and make it make sense. Because his bass line in that part, I think, is fine. It's a decent.
His bass line fucking slaps.
Yeah, it's a Flea bass line that is funky and has good syncopations and weird little riffs in it. And so, yeah, I assumed it was the other way around. But really, what happened is he comes in with this stupid guitar riff, and I think Flea's just like, oh, all right, I got to polish this turd, And it's to me, the riff would actually be less grating to me. They've got that intro that's like this banging sort of loud rock in your face intro. It's the first track on the album, so people listen to yeah, fuck yeah. And then it drops out and you get this stupid guitar riff. And I feel like if the dropout had been to just his bass line, and then the guitar comes in with the vocals, which is the reverse of what's actually happening, it would have been far less annoying. By putting that riff up front, you're saying that, hey guys, this is very crucial to the song. You need to pay attention to it. So then it just becomes this, it just stands out like a hot needle being slowly driven into your eardrum throughout the course of the song.
I bet that they did that because the song, like you said, starts with bass, and they wanted to flip it when the dropout happens, so that the same formula isn't followed twice.
Yeah, possibly. It just doesn't work here. You said the thing about the whole Frankenstein thing, and that's something I harp on a lot about the arrangements. It just, and this song is guilty of it. Obviously, it seems like an attempt at them mashing up their funk and then punk with this newer melodic pop style, but none of them really exist simultaneously. So you get a section of funk that really isn't all that funky, a section of punk, which isn't all that punk, and then a section of melodic pop.
Which the section of melodic pop, I think, that was going to be my one defense of this song, is that when it gets to that moment, you're like, oh, this is why this band is massive.
Right.
There are great bass lines, and it's fun. Even if we have these problems with it, if this came on, it wouldn't put us in a worse mood, more than likely. And then it gets to that chorus. Hayden, do you beg to differ on that?
No, I would agree. I mean,
Okay.
the song. Yeah, go ahead.
You made a face there. If you can make it to the chorus, you realize this is why this band is huge. But I think that blending all of those elements that you're talking about, Josh, the funk and the punk, and then it sounds like California pop to me once they get to the chorus. And they did that successfully on other tracks, and it feels very like you can see all the seams in the construction of this one when you can't in other ones. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to kick it to Hayden here in a minute, but the one thing I want to say, I do agree about the melodic pop thing. Like, you hear that and you're like, oh, this is why they're big. 100% agree. But like, I tried to put myself in the shoes of like a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, you know? Like, so One Hot Minute has come out and you're disappointed by it. Then this new album comes back, Frusciante's back in the band. It's the first track on the album. You get this huge rock intro that I like. You I think said didn't really care for it, but I think it was great. It kind of in their vein. And then
fucking rules.
And then this weird guitar riff happens, but then Flea's bass line's like, oh, okay, yeah, they're back. All right, this is cool. And then it just cuts right to that chorus with no real preparation for it. So this hypothetical fan is like, what the fuck is this shit?
You also get hit with the drum machine, maybe for the first time in their career in that chorus. Did you notice how that Will Ferrell's drum part is overlaid with a drum machine very loudly in the mix?
I didn't notice that because the last thing I'll say is that the vocal harmonies, I think, in that section are just mixed way too loud. They're very loud. And they just drown everything else
disagree.
out.
I think it's great, but they are very loud. And it's, while I was playing this, I listened to all the different ways I could, played it on the Sonos right before we came in here to do this. And my wife pointed out that this is their trick every time, like the oohs and ahs behind the chorus that soars a little bit. And I'm not mad about it, but it's their formula.
It's the only sufferable vocal experience you get out of the whole catalog are his harmonies, so of course they're high.
And yeah, I think too that those vocal harmonies are mostly, if not entirely, a Rick Rubin insertion.
Yeah, I would guess that old Ricky had something to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, because the guitar part in that section has kind of a little syncopated picking part to it, but you can't really hear it again because the vocal harmonies are just way too fucking loud.
Well, I mean, that's their we got to get on the radio mix.
Exactly. Well, that was, and I think this will segue into some of the stuff that Hayden want to talk about, but I found one source talking about there's a lot of criticism of the loudness of the whole album. This is kind of, I think, when the quote-unquote loudness wars start to kick off, where everything's overly compressed and the overall average sound level of a track is just super fucking loud. But specifically, you can go look, like pull a waveform off of the album and look at it, and you just see the digital distortion like all over the place, the clipping, which is, you could argue that on the radio it made it worse, but like that is a thing that they printed when they sent it out, was just really bad digital clips throughout the album.
People noticed it too. I found so many examples of people just screaming about this, essentially. I've got a few here, like just fans coming out and talking about how bad the mix and master on this record is, despite maybe even liking the record. But here's a couple of examples. Dear God, this album sounds like shit. I mean, really, like the shitty mastering is noticeable even on fucking Apple EarPods. Give me a break.
To throw it back to the longest standing Billboard charting record, like you go back and listen to, and obviously it's 30 years before, but Dark Side of the Moon, like that is a quiet record.
Yes.
Even the parts that you're like, whoa, this is like peak like rock opera kind of, theatrical, just like super dramatic stuff. It's a quiet record, ultimately.
He's very tapping the drums.
Yeah. And it's such a, like if you played both of those in your 6-disc changer in 1999 and you went from one to the other, I got to think it would be pretty jarring.
Yeah, I mean, but the difference is that it's dynamic. Right. There's
Right.
a difference
Right.
between the quietest parts and the loudest parts, which you don't get on most stuff now, and certainly not this Chili Peppers album. I mean,
This is all on the front foot. It wants to punch. It wants to be in your face.
Yeah.
It's a choice. I mean, we joked about the lack of reverb or delay or any sense of space. Everything feels like it's like in a vacuum, which works for them most of the time. And it provides, I think that's why the chorus soars a little bit, because they kind of breathe out a little bit and then it goes back in to this very I'm sure every drum was probably mic'd, or it sounds that way. If it wasn't, it's a very very tight production.
Yeah. So before Hayden gets back into what he wants to say, we're kind of going to let him go off here again as a birthday present. But let's do another lyric battle before that gets started.
All right, so we're at 2-2.
We're at 2-2, all tied up.
All right. This is from Get on Top. Get up. Come sit up. I light but she lit up. Grasshopper, showstopper. The life of a wife swapper. Come with me, 'cause I'm a big bopper. You do, but I whopper.
Okay, Adam.
This is from Warlocks. Warlocks in Wonderland. I've got a rockopotamus in my hand with a happy ending that's made of sand.
Oh.
With a little bit of lovin' is all I can.
God damn you, rockopotamus.
Yeah, I think I've got to give that one to Adam on this time.
Fuck.
I'm ruining your birthday. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, you'll have a chance to catch up. Yeah. So Hayden, why don't you pop off on what you don't like about this song?
I mean, I'll be brief on this since we're getting close to time and I've got some other stuff I really want to discuss. But I mean, it's always the same for me. I think they're a good band. I always am interested in musically what's happening, even if it's not my thing. I just cannot stand Anthony Kiedis. I never have been able to really. Even when I loved the band, he still drove me crazy. And it's just it really boils down to that for me because, I mean, when Around the World came on in the car when I was driving to New Orleans last weekend, and I had a fucking blast listening to it, despite brief fits of rage at him. And it's just really it applies to almost every song for me.
So is your thesis that you actually like this song?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's an interesting track. The fact that it's Frankenstein together does not bother me as more of an alternative music kind of guy. I actually really, really love the ending kind of drone section, like the minor double picked chord drone section. I think it's awesome. I'd listen to it for 2 minutes more, despite the horrible snare sound.
I was going to say the ending is a standout section to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And there are a lot of sections on that record in particular. That was definitely a theme in the record. There's a lot of weird instrumental experimentation going on that is super cool throughout the record that is, ruined and burst by Anthony Kiedis immediately following in those moments usually. But that's pretty much it for me. It's always been that way. I can't stand that dude.
Yeah, no comments on the video?
Well. Well, I mean, Adam may have pointed this out earlier, but
Hayden's about to have spirit fingers.
There's a real great YouTube comment in which it says, "Are we going to talk about Anthony finger blasting a light fairy at 1 minute and 5 seconds or not?" So I don't know if you went and read the responses to that, Adam, but I was like, damn, even with the Aussie lubrication, it would hurt the imaginary female. Which led me. Are you familiar with what Aussie lubrication means? Because I went to Urban Dictionary after this.
I mean, I know he sticks his finger in his mouth beforehand. Is that what it's talking about?
Right. Here is the official Urban Dictionary for Aussie charm.
Oh, God.
The act of using saliva as lube during sex or masturbation. Used in a sentence. With a bit of Aussie charm, you'll never have to worry about lube again. But really what we got to talk about, you guys, is the sock situation.
Yeah, I didn't even mention the sock situation. I'm going to let you...
We got to talk about the sock situation. I'm going to send y'all a link real quick. I went on a pilgrimage this morning to find a used sock that went on their dinguses in the 90s. I did not find said sock, but I have some interesting leads, and we'll get to that. But examine what I sent you first. It looks like they actually produced and marketed these tube socks. I'm assuming all the listeners are familiar with them wearing socks on their dinguses live in concert.
Right.
Not that we've gone with dingus as the official term.
I've already.
I mean, it's apt because it kind of describes Anthony Kiedis as a person, too. He's a bit of a dingus.
Right. He is a bit of a dingus. So I found this item. This is the only one. It's described as very rare, and it's like $90-something for an unopened pack of branded tube socks that I guess they sold for a brief period of time to try to make some money.
Yeah, it's just a white tube sock with the Red Hot Chili Peppers like logo sort of on the top of it, I guess.
This does not look like any tube sock that I've ever seen.
And let me just tell y'all guys one thing. Nothing will cause an immediate existential crisis like searching eBay for RHCP cock socks. I mean,
Dingus sock.
Anyway, that's just a hilarious item to exist at all. But my search for the used sock led me to a Reddit thread. I was going through message boards and Reddit threads trying to see if anybody ever really discusses. I'm assuming some perv somewhere would want to own one of those, some massive fan. But this led me to an interesting thread under the title, "How did they get these socks to stay on?"
It's a good question.
Let me tell you the responses. I'm just going to read some of the gems of the responses to this.
Okay.
"If you have to ask, you'll never know." "I've tried it, and my balls held the sock in place."
How many times platinum do you have to go before you have somebody that's on the tour, paid on staff, whose job it is to make sure everything's good?
I don't know.
I think 2.
A lot. 2? No, probably more than 2.
You don't have to pay this intern very much. It's a pretty cheap occupation.
The next opinion on how they get the socks to stay on is with their massive balls. Or maybe they just had a boner the whole time.
Oh, God.
So moving on from that, I started digging through, at y'all's request, both the official message board, rhcp.com, and the fan-run site, the Chili Source. I had a lot of weird flashbacks while going through this, by the way, of you and I on DMB message boards. Didn't we record a song and put on these message boards live in the shed?
Possibly. That sounds accurate.
Oh, God. Depressing. Anyway, there's one person in particular who I found combing through the Chili Source who started a lot of threads about socks. Not necessarily about used socks, but they would always post, for one example, they have a picture of chili peppers that kind of look phallic and being like, "Where's the socks for these things?" Stuff like that. Weird pictures of socks, all sorts of sock talk. I even found an advertisement for apparently branded Red Hot Chili Peppers pies that existed at one point, 2011.
Like pies, like an apple pie?
Like a pie, like a meat pie. I'll give you. It's called Blood Sugar Foods.
Okay.
Ready-made pies inspired and created by members of the Peppers. They're even endorsed by the whole band. So they released 3 flavors. Anthony Kiedis is being, and I don't even know what this means, but bear and hot pepper pie. Flea's was blueberry and chili pie. And Chad Smith coming with the winner here, chicken drumstick and red pepper beer pie.
That's all American right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty badass, honestly. Anyway, so this person that I'm getting at, Squitherwitch, who I figured out was an admin for the website, just made a lot of sock comments, right? So I was like, who is Squitherwitch and why are they talking about socks so much? So I started digging around through the website and figured out they're one of the main admins, like I said, and I also found their email address.
Uh-oh.
So I may have fired off an email to Squitherwitch this morning, and I'll read you what I wrote before I tell you why I'm horrified that I wrote it. Yo, Squids, found you while surfing on Chili Source.
Oh, God.
Know where a player can find a used RHCP sock from the 90s online for purchase? You know what I mean. Wink. Keep it funky.
Is this you trying to disguise yourself as a Red Hot Chili Pepper fan?
He's going undercover.
Yeah. I'm going undercover here. Yeah. So I sent that email this morning. I've yet to get a response. I will be sure to update the listeners if I do. But after I sent it, I ended up finding Squitherwitch on Instagram. Turns out it's like a middle-aged mom.
Oh no!
Who is now into nature photography? Because the last post that Squitherwitch made on Chili Source was from 2011. So I think that
she's been out of the game.
She's been out of the game for quite some time.
Her sock days are long behind her.
Maybe not, though.
I feel like this podcast is taking a real S-Town kind of turn right now with you investigating these message board people.
I really wanted to start a thread that we could come back to because I got a strong feeling she's going to respond to me. She's on UK time, so maybe she's like making her kids a little early afternoon pre-dinner snack. Maybe they're sitting down to boil some beef and cabbage. I don't know.
We're full circle again.
With the beef and cabbage. Well, if you've got nothing else to add about the song, Hayden, I think we need to claim or find who the winner of our lyric battle is. So why don't you pop off another one?
Wait, what's the score here? Is this is the deciding round?
Well, Adam, you're up 3-2. So if Hayden,
I can force a playoff.
Yeah, we can force.
I'm going to lose the playoff.
We can force a tiebreaker. So let's let Hayden go first since he's down.
Okay. Python power, straight from Monty. Celluloid love's got a John Frusciante. Spread your head and spread the blanket. She's too free, and I'm the patient.
Damn it.
I like the call out to the guitarist in that lyric. Okay, Adam.
This is from the song Charlie. You can do it at the Hippodrome. Slide back, trombone.
Oh,
Anybody got a TV tome? That's right. Unknown.
God damn it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hippodrome and trombone writing is just it's too good. We're gonna have to declare Adam the winner on this one.
Hey, and I'm gonna have to make this up for your birthday somehow.
I'm really bummed right now.
I feel like I pulled the rug out from under you on your special day.
I will say this. I realize I kind of expected this because I think I may have doomed myself by relegating myself solely to Californication because I realized that despite there being some real winners, that a lot of the record is like some of his more passable stuff.
Well, and I had Stadium Arcadium to work with, which is, yeah.
I really wanted to go back to Blood Sugar and pull some gems, but I stuck to my rules and I lost and I'll accept it.
Well, you'll still always be the king of Kiedis lyrics in my heart, Hayden.
And in my text messages.
Yes, which I'm sure we'll be getting plenty of once we're done recording.
One thing before we close, having just got out of a very tumultuous election season, I want to say there's one thing I do agree with Mr. Kiedis on, despite my hatred for him. I'm down with the state of Pennsylvania too, you guys.
Beautiful.
Oh man. Well, with that, we're gonna wrap up. Hayden, Adam, thanks for joining me again to talk about really just a god awful song. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. This Song Sucks was brought to you by the Alabama Take. Follow us on Instagram at ThisSongSucksPod and on Twitter at SucksPod. You can also find us on the Alabama Take Facebook page. Comments, hate mail, and song suggestions for future shows can be sent to ThisSongSucksPod@gmail.com.